I hope you're ready to get fact-checked today. What's up? I'm Barbie Wire, and I am a TERF. I mean a serf.
Law-abiding citizen.
Fine, you animals. I'll admit it. I am getting my degree in business administration. But also I'm getting another degree in gender and sexuality studies. Hey, how are you? No, see, but that's the thing, is that I am socially aware enough to know that the moments I bring up what degrees I'm getting, there's going to be a certain corner of the internet with certain kinds of people that make up a certain demographic, and they will take everything I say as a joke and treat me as a joke. Now, what's funny is that they're right. I am a joke, but not for that reason. There are so many other reasons I'm a joke. Refreshing. Now, what the fuck is this video about? Oh yeah. Hit the intro. In this video, I want to talk about the reasons why leftists seem so paranoid about everything. And what does that have to do with feminism? And also tell you my thoughts on the matter. In this video, I want to explore the optics of leftist activism. We're always on a goddamn witch hunt for every bad, offensive, every bad offensive thing that you do, right-wingers or moderates or conservatives, why those optics are there, if there's any truth to the matter, and come to some conclusions. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna do that? We're gonna do that, great. Wow, I literally feel like a podcaster, what the fuck? So let's just start off with the fact that the right does seem to lie a lot. The right sure does seem to, stretch the limits of what truth is, which is curious considering that they are so steadfast on the truth. So let's start with fact-checking the president on Twitter. So this made a huge uproar. Trump made the claim that mail-in ballots would cause an unyielding amount of voter fraud and skewed the results in the upcoming election, which is false. Voter suppression is known to impact Black, impoverished, and Democratic neighborhoods. This happens in many, many ways, from literally the machines just not showing up to something as simple as forcing election sites to open late. I mean, we could look at the recent example of this in Georgia. The website thenation.com, I do not know this website, so do not come for me, but they just had the information, said LaTosha Brown, the co-founder of the group Black Voters Matter, tweeted early Wednesday morning that Georgia's elections were a hot mess. Last voter walked out at 12:37 a.m. in Union City. Brown and her group provided support for voters who waited 5 or more hours to cast ballots in predominantly African-American precincts, while noting that in suburban precincts there were fewer lines. Referring to this stark disparity, she said, "I come over to this suburban polling place, and white folks are strolling in. On my side of town, we brought stadium chairs." LeBron James went to the heart of the matter, observing amid Tuesday's troubles, "Everyone's talking about how do we fix this? They say, go out and vote. What about asking if how we vote is also structurally racist?" Slam dunk for LeBron James. Mail-in ballots would remove any targeted tactics of impacting specific communities or locations. If each precinct or whatever mailed in their votes, then things could be done way more efficiently. Also, let's be real. If we're being honest and talking about a rigged system, then let's talk about how much voter fraud actually does happen in the US. The answer is that it basically doesn't. There's a very extremely low percent of voter fraud in the US. It's 0.0025 of a percent. So if I've done the math correctly, that's about 1 in every 2.5 billion people, or 250,000 people, or 250 people. I can't do math. But besides, standing in lines right now is dangerous as fuck in public because of coronavirus. So literally, if we had a competent president, he would be endorsing non-in-person voting. Now, the right got super heated about Twitter fact-checking the president,
and it being some leftist conspiracy to undermine the president, undermine the American government, and silence him and restrict his First Amendment.
When it came to an issue that he was very obviously wrong about. Why is this? Why does the right want to defend a mascot rather than an ideology? Well, Innuendo Studios says this great clip.
Well, because what I want you to understand today is that the conservative thinks about people dying of preventable illnesses, school shootings, and back alley abortions the way you think about Mondays. The conservative mindset tends to sort things into binaries with no room for scale. Mass shootings either happen or they don't. You can talk about how much safer countries with robust gun control are, and they'll just say, here's a shooting that happened in England. Here's a shooting that happened in Australia. Gun control didn't stop them. You can't regulate evil. And this is the kind of sentence that can drive you up the wall, because it is, on its face, obviously true, but it's only applicable in this context thanks to the word that's implied but not stated. You can't regulate all evil.
So I just found this Wikipedia page called Voter Suppression in the United States, and it's a long page. However, as important of a topic as voter suppression is, this video is using voter suppression as an example of a larger issue, which is why the hell do left-wingers seem so paranoid all the time, especially when engaging in dialogue with right-wing individuals?
Now, we have a pretty good history of the right lying to us, and some might say this has to do with Republican politicians specifically lying a lot. We could think about Watergate, we could think about MK Ultra, but also we could think about Obama and drones. He wasn't Republican. But also, here's the thing, all politicians lie. It doesn't matter your political leaning, because if you're a leftist, then you're going to see evidence of the right lying, and vice versa. Except when it becomes clear to a leftist that a leftist politician is lying, leftists are much more likely to take action against those politicians, whereas the right just sort of moves on to the next thing, the next topic. They don't really stop to address the issues that have been raised.
In fact, Nazis are literally using websites like 4chan to organize. In fact, I, being the amazing journalist that I am, decided to go and take a little trip, and here's something I found it pretty interesting. It's okay to be white. Game plan, if you haven't seen it already. Number 1, Anons organize on here and elsewhere, print out uniform posters. Includes the link. Number 2, put on mask and unremarkable clothing for anonymity. Nobody will think twice because it's quarantine. Number 3, posters go up on campuses and elsewhere across the world. Number 4, the media goes completely berserk as they have in the past. See, so they've already displayed a history of using the media and outcry for their own benefit. Number 5, normies tune in to see what's going on, see the posters saying it's okay to be white, and the media and leftists frothing at the mouth. Number 6, normies realize that leftists and journalists hate white people, so they turn on them. Number 7, credibility of far-left campuses and media gets nuked. Massive victory for the right in the culture war. Many more /R guys spawned overnight. Now, some important reminders. Ignore anyone advocating criminal activity, vandalism, etc. These are shills trying to ruin our operation. It is pointless, most importantly, bad PR to do anything illegal. The point is to have the maximum contrast between how evil the media portrays these posters and how clearly benign they are to normies. Do not alter the poster. Uniformity is key. It will have the biggest impact. A watermark or URL is not to be added. Ignore shills whining, trying to ruin the operation by adding watermarks to far-right sites. Okay. There's also this narrative that the left loves to eat each other, and while I think it's true that we are a lot more critical of each other than conservatives and right-wingers tend to be of each other, there was some drama on these Nazi forums, and I just kind of want to show y'all that. That's not how population genetics work. I don't even know if what you're saying about Asian women having a lower IQ relative to white women is true or not, but even if it is, that is irrelevant to what you're talking about. You're a... Let me explain. I'm going to assume you're white, despite your apparent... oh my god. Intelligence. Let's suppose Asian women have a low IQ and Asian men have an average or high IQ. Other things being equal, if you have a kid with an Asian woman, that does not entail that the kid has a higher probability of being low intelligence because Asian women are less intelligent. What it actually tells you is that if the kid is a female, then she will have a higher probability of being less intelligent. But if the kid is male, then the kid actually has a higher probability of being average to high intelligence. Like, what the fuck kind of discourse? Not how genetics work, faggots. We are not talking about statistics here. Oh my god. We are talking about a vast number of interconnected variables that constitute IQ. In whites, the weak link of IQ is the female, because she has, in general, a lower IQ than white males, while still being higher than any other race's females. So the IQ of the mother determines the IQ of the offspring because, in general, that is the lower variable. Okay, I'm like done reading this. This shit's stupid, right? Like, this shit is stupid. Maybe one day I'll make a video where I like go through these forums and just like tear these guys a new one because they're all so fucking dumb.
Now, let's take a step back and think about how everyone in the world has been feeling a sense of society collapsing lately. It's sort of like a breach in the fourth wall. And that could be marked up to literally the president being on Twitter, tweeting all the time about shit that's going on. But we can see this enacting this sense of hopelessness being present in the rise in doomers. And the thing is that these systems that have been in place for a really long time have just been increasing in public dialogue. They're not new, we're just more aware of them.
Now I'm going to once again reference my boy, Innuendo Studios, because he does such an amazing job of placing these ideas into such well-worded metaphors and examples, and I love the man.
Gabe exists at the intersection of the kinds of people the alt-right is looking for, straight white cis men who feel emasculated by modern society, primarily, though they do make exceptions, and the kinds of people who are vulnerable to recruitment. The adage about bros on the internet is political means anything I disagree with. But it would be more accurate to say here, political means anything on which the community disagrees. For instance, Nazis are bad is an apolitical statement because everyone in the community agrees. It's common sense and therefore neutral. But paradoxically, Nazis are good is also apolitical. Because Nazis are bad is the consensus, Nazis are good must just be an edgy joke, and even if not, the community already believes the opposite, so the statement is harmless, tolerable. However, feminism is good is a political statement because the community hasn't reached a consensus. It is debatable and therefore political, and you should stop talking about it. There is a vast, interconnected network of far-right communities out there, and Gabe is, at this point, only on the periphery. In order to keep him in, they need to disrupt his relationships to other communities and become more and more his primary online social space. Consider the ecosystem of the alt-right as layers of an onion, with Gabe sitting at the edge and ready to traverse towards the center. The outer layer of the onion is extremism at its most plausibly deniable. Without careful scrutiny, the public-facing figureheads could pass as dispassionate, and the websites as merely problematic rather than softly fascist. It is valuable if Gabe believes this as well, that at this stage, he believed the bigotry is simply trolling, the extremists an insignificant minority, and any report of harassment faked. That he believe where he is as deep as the rabbit hole goes, and that he continue to believe this at each successive layer. People in the deepest crevices of the alt-right self-report getting red-pilled on multiple issues at different times in their journey to the center of the onion. If Gabe's first red pill is about the SJWs coming for his free speech, he'll think that's all anyone in his community believes. There's no real racism here, people are just making a point about their right to offend people. Then, when he gets red-pilled on the white genocide, he'll laugh at those alt-light cucks who tried to sweep the race realists under the rug, and at himself for having once been one, but acknowledge that those channels and websites are still useful for onboarding people, so he won't denounce them. At the same time, nobody takes those manosphere betas seriously. And this process is reiterated with every pill swallowed. Gender essentialism, autogynephilia, birtherism, Sandy Hook truth, Pizzagate, QAnon if he's really out there. The heart of the onion is typically the Jewish question, but these can happen in any order and in any number. But each layer sells itself as being finally the ultimate truth. Each denies the validity of the others. The layers ahead, they don't exist, and you are certainly not being directed towards them. They're just the fevered imaginations of overreacting liberals, while the people behind are asleep, where you are now awake. That's why they chose the red pill as their metaphor. Take it, and everything will be revealed. That's why it cozies up with conspiracism.
So this lovely person named Eve Sedgwick wrote a book about paranoia and reparative reading. Right now, we're just going to talk about paranoia.
Now, I wanted to reference Eve Sedgwick because she kind of wrote the book on queer theory and paranoia. Literally, it's called Paranoid Reading and Reparative Reading. So she originally wrote the book in like 1995 or something, and then it was republished in 2003. To her, Sedgwick says that paranoid reading and, by extension, a paranoid perspective or approach is the intellectual offspring of Marx, Nietzsche, and Freud, those suspicious readers par excellence. Excuse me, dog. She says that this has become the dominant mode of critical inquiry practiced in literary and cultural studies today, so dominant, in fact, that most people think of paranoid reading practices in theory as synonymous. She says that to practice theory is to practice the hermeneutics of suspicion. Paranoia has by now candidly become less a diagnosis than a prescription. So, what the fuck does any of that mean? Now, Sedgwick was writing this because it was somewhat of a critique of how theory is used and understood in academic spaces and literary spaces, but I think that can be expanded to this conversation. So there is a connection between queer studies and paranoid reading because of the long-standing historical associations between homosexuality, homophobia, and paranoia as both a medical condition and an interpretive mode. And so the 5 characteristics of a paranoid reading are: 1. Paranoia is anticipatory. 2. Paranoia is reflexive and mimetic. 3. Paranoia is a strong theory. 4. Paranoia is a theory of negative effects. 5. Paranoia places its faith in exposure. Now, what the fuck does that mean? Paranoia is anticipatory, means that you are is a mode of expecting, is a mode of approaching a conversation or a dialogue or an idea from a perspective of distrust. 2, paranoia is reflexive and mimetic. It means that it is not something that it's similar to 1 in that we do it naturally and out of habit, and others pick up on it and they mime or repeat that thought process, which I think explains a lot of. When she says that paranoia is a strong theory, she's using that in terms of scientific language. It's like when gravity went from being a theory to a law. So a theory is basically something that cannot be proven, but can be seen and can be evaluated, but cannot be easily disproven. The second it's disproven, then it's not necessarily a theory. It just means that it hasn't been observed with enough substantiated evidence to be a law. So paranoia is a theory of negative effects. That means that we are expecting bad things or harmful traits when we are approaching things like this. So 5, paranoia places its faith in exposure. This means that it's similar to what I was talking about before, where we approach things with a sense of distrust. So we are listening to the words, we are taking in the ideas and the conversations, but with the understanding that it's false and that there is a hidden layer of meaning, or there is a sense of some truth or some evidence or some information being covered up. Now, I believe that everyone on the political spectrum is paranoid. right now and has been for a long time. However, Sedgwick does bring up that there is an alternative approach to things, to these positions, other than a paranoid approach. She calls it a reparative approach. And basically, she says that reparative approach emphasizes practices of engagement over fixed identity positions, and they're not prescriptive, meaning that they do not define something before they are observed. They are flexible, and Sedgwick says that the paranoid position is understandably marked by hatred, envy, and anxiety, a position of terrible alertness to the dangers posed by the hateful and envious part objects that one defensively projects into, carves out of, and ingests from the world around one. God, I fucking hate academia. Basically, what that means is that we have been socialized and our experiences bring us as to such as to be distrustful and not just cautious, but somewhat malicious in the way that we approach things. So let's talk about the way that reparative reading works. So repairing is actually work, and it reminds me of that, and also reparative practices doesn't try to create a pre-existing whole, but aims to produce something like a whole that is responsive to the needs of the moment and the individual. It makes use of the resources that are available to the individual.
Okay, wait, but there's another group of leftists that are also paranoid. Are we going to talk about my girls and boys and squirrels and toys and black and red? The anarcho-communists? Okay, but what is an anarcho-communist? Are they paranoid? I mean, yeah, they're paranoid, but I love them. So I've been talking about the left and paranoia quite a bit this video, which makes sense considering the title of this video and the topic, but there is so much to talk about when it comes to the right and paranoia. I mean, this is another video entirely, but some things to look forward to in a video that would contain those sorts of topics are Nazis, David Icke, Alex Jones, the NRA, and more. Oh my god. That's like a 45 fucking minute video. Well, that was this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoy. Be sure to like, subscribe, share.
Make sure to subscribe. Click that subscribe button right now. Share, tell everyone, tweet, upvote, Facebook, you know.
Check out my Patreon. To be continued. Suck a pickle, eat a dick, and have a nice day, Gorge.